It's day 30. Masayo and I have been on this trip for over 4 weeks so far. The trip is really just beginning. My blood sugars have been so-so, but seem to be stabilizing, sort of. We've seen a lot in 6 countries in northeastern Europe so far, and today is another exciting destination, one I'd never even heard of. Malbork Castle in northern Poland. Hi, I'm Jeremy. Thanks for watching. To speak very broadly and very basically, there are 2 great things about travel: being somewhere fascinating and moving from one fascinating place to another. It's the great dichotomy of the traveler's soul. You fall in love with the destination and then have to tear yourself away because more destinations await. A good trip is an endless series of short love affairs, all of which leave their mark on you, and all of which end necessarily, and each just a little too soon. Travel is life itself. Our 2 days in Gdansk have been great. The chaos of Warsaw is a distant memory, the epic old town of Gdansk has restored our sense of wonder, and the strong, cheerful vibe of the port city has made us feel welcome. And so it's time to leave. We decided last night to take a train to the nearby town of Malbork, which boasts a fabulous and famous castle that's a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Any day when you're in motion is a thrilling day, and I was excited since this was only the second train of the entire trip. Buses ruled the Baltics, ferries the Fjordlands. The day started off well for this diabetic with a 1:37. A last-minute breakfast at the Happy 7 hostel, a few final chords on the hostel guitar, I'll Miss You, A minor on the 5th fret, and Masayo and I strode through Gdansk one last bittersweet time to its impressive train station. We seemed to be the only true travelers on the train to Malbork. Everyone else was a local, commuting to work or some other mundane thing. Mixing with the residents like this always throws the traveler's odd life into bold relief. Their rigid and repetitious workday versus our aimless and unplanned European wanderings. I envied us. The ride to Malbork is short and sweet. I enjoyed the station names on the way, even if I wasn't sure how to pronounce them. And although the train left Gdansk 10 minutes late, we arrived right on time. The guest house I'd reserved on Booking.com had 2 great things going for it. It's got a cool name, vis-a-vis Zamku, and apparently you can actually see the Malbork Castle from our room across the Nogat River. After a 2-kilometer walk through mid-morning Malbork, under its gray Polish November skies, we found a couple more things to like about vis-a-vis Zamku. First, they let us check in super early. And the place is really just a cozy little house, with us in the comfy attic room. On this side street that runs along the Nogat, there are no shops or restaurants. But there is indeed a nice castle view in this quiet rural area beside the river, even if it's a bit too cold to hang out on the balcony. We threw our bags in the room and headed towards the day's goal, a tour of Malbork Castle. A small bridge leads pedestrians over the river, and on this modest span I had a quick check, 2:08. Another post-breakfast high, although I've seen worse. First thing was first, lunch. We gingerly stepped inside a small door on the side of the castle that seemed like it might be a restaurant. It was like being back in Shakespearean times, a dark series of chilly chambers full of soft lighting, candles, and ancient mysteries. There were no people, and we couldn't tell if the place was open and if it was even a restaurant. But we saw a waitress, and she welcomed us to a little table in an alcove. We'd scarcely been in a more remarkable eating establishment. I got eggs and tomatoes and a bunch of bread and took my Humalog through my Bluffworks pants right at the table. The simple meal from medieval times was great fuel for the day, although Masayo wasn't impressed at my attempts at self-mutilation. Then it was on to the tour itself. The admission was about $6, actually 19 zloty, and included an iPhone audio tour. There were a few other tourists milling around, but mostly we seemed to have the place all to ourselves. Malbork Castle was begun in the 1200s and was completed in 1406. At that time, it was the largest brick castle in the world and is now the largest castle in the world of any type, measured by land area. It was built by a group called the Teutonic Knights, the same military cum religious group that was defeated by the Poles and Lithuanians in the epic Battle of Grunwald in 1410, which led to the commemorative beer I drank in Kaunas back on day 23, which highlights the strange way that you learn history and culture when you travel. But I digress. The castle served important roles throughout the centuries as it changed hands from Prussia to the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth to Sweden and Nazi Germany. Malbork Castle was heavily damaged in World War II and has been lovingly restored to its former glory. The castle also serves as a fascinating museum, and the entire complex was added to the UNESCO list in 1997. Quite a place for 2 people to wander around unhindered unhindered on a pleasingly chilly November afternoon. A billboard outside the castle entrance shows the extent of damage from the war, making its current state all the more impressive. Because this is everything you'd want a medieval castle to be, almost to the point of being a stereotype. Brick archways, fearsome gates of giant metal spikes, emotive and obscure sculptures in relief, wide courtyards and creeping ivy, motley collections of windows and doorways leading who knows where. And that's just the outside. Inside the museum are relics and elements of medieval life. The religious, the grand, the gaudy, and the merely necessary all sit in rooms large and small, with either huge arcing ceilings like nobody designs anymore, or smaller frescoed chambers looking like an amateur Sistine Chapel, painted for the sheer joy of it. The colors and shapes in big empty spaces speak of a different time. The lack of commercial ugliness around the castle helps complete the sense that you've briefly gone back in time a few centuries, iPhone notwithstanding. Other displays tell of the sometimes violent history of Malbork. Cannons and arrows and armor and dangerous-looking daggers weren't for the faint of heart, whether human or equine. This display notes that Adolf Hitler visited the castle several times. But the overall feel of the place is one of religious devotion, creative expression, and a fanatical allegiance to the finer things. For a couple of sandwich-eating budget travelers, it was all pretty thrilling. After about 3 hours wandering around Malbork Castle, we stopped in a small back alley courtyard where my blood sugar was 99. I liked that number, but something didn't quite feel right. Indeed, back at the guest house, where we met another friendly owner, I was down to 64. I had some juice and chocolate and laid down to listen to the Beatles on my laptop until dinner. Later, we stepped outside into the Malbork darkness to find dinner. By this time, I was 229. Sigh. There was only one choice for dinner, but it was a good one. The name of the place was Restaurazia Ufisaka. The restaurant was on a boat in the Nogat River, and the approach to it was maybe the most dramatic I'd ever seen. Across the wide and flat river, bright lights threw the castle towers into picturesque silhouette. The path down the hill to the boat was marked by a rickety old sign festooned with irregular metal lettering and decorations. It was all bathed in yellow street lighting, gorgeous and absolutely unique. We scrambled down the hill, strode over the gangplank, and were seated inside. The only other customers were a group of about 10 teenagers celebrating a birthday. They'd hooked up their laptop to the speaker system and were playing dreadful dance pop. They kept looking over at Maseo and I. I think they'd wanted the place to themselves. Sorry guys. I got a meal I thought was low in carbs. Fish, cheese, cauliflower, and broccoli. And water. I took 5 units, but I waited until the end of the meal because I still felt odd. We left the floating restaurant and started wandering some unlikely-looking back streets, hoping against hope to find a shop where we could buy water and snacks for the room. And lo and behold, we rounded a darkened corner and the travel gods smiled on us. A little supermarket called Biedronka. Their donut display case had little bugs flying around in it, but they weren't actually touching the pastries that much, and there weren't that many of them. Say what you will about me, but I bought one. Back in the room, I was 301. Okay, I made some bad decisions today, but also something else was up. I just felt bad. I took a bunch of insulin and ate my donut. Overall, it was a remarkable day in northern Poland. We learned about the history of the area in dramatic fashion. We checked another UNESCO World Heritage Site off our list. And we found everything we needed in a generally empty part of Malbork. One of the last things I did was take a photo of the castle at night. I've been underwhelmed by the quality of the camera I brought, but sometimes it captures a photo like this one. The low-light haze was insufficient for the camera's primitive electronics, and so was interpreted as a gorgeous golden-hued and painterly image of a scene right out of the 15th century. Any artist would be justifiably proud of getting this onto a canvas. Imbued with a sense of something ancient but accessible, we drifted off to sleep in our quiet little attic room beside the wise, benevolent river. Well done, Malbork. Good thing and a bad thing. I was quite taken with Mr. Albrecht Hohenzollern's fanciful 16th century footwear from this statue at the castle. Now people wear Crocs. This is a step down in culture, I would say. I was disappointed, weirdly, that the train ride was so short. I love sitting on a moving train. Diabetes thoughts. Something is up with my blood sugar. The average of my readings was 173. Not crazy unreasonable, but the highs feel different than usual. It's not a simple matter of balancing food and insulin. I suspect my liver is complicating things by releasing glucose, but I don't know why. The highs feel thicker and stickier, if you know what I mean. Nothing to do but keep at it and ride it out, I guess. Tomorrow we're in for a different type of adventure. I get my wish, a 10-hour train ride all the way through Poland down to Kraków. Spending a day just moving like that is part of the fun of travel. It's a pity my blood sugars are so high on the otherwise comfortable Polish train. At least Kraków is another instantly likable city, although it's always dodgy arriving in a busy new place late on a Saturday night.